recently just ran my first marathon, and although I didn't hit my goal paces that I set out to achieve, I believe I had really strong training in place. So I'm going to go over my schedule for my training, what it looked like, and why I believe I was so successful, and how I was able to hit 3:38 for my first marathon. And if you haven't seen my video on how my marathon went, my takeaways leading up to it, and all that, I'll link it above so you can check that out after this video. But let's dive in. So leading up to the marathon, I wasn't actually signed up for it. I didn't plan on running it. I was just running on and off here and there. And then all of a sudden, I didn't really have anything to strive for. And then I was like, you know what, let's sign up for a marathon so I actually have something that I can work towards. So that's what I ended up doing. And my goal was to sign up for a marathon that's about 1 to 2 months out. And when I was looking for marathons in that time range, I saw two that really stood out to me. One was in Alaska, one was in Edmonton. The flights to Alaska were over $1,000, so I opted out for Edmonton, and I decided to go there because it was a lot cheaper. So I decided to sign up for the Edmonton Marathon, and that gave me about 10 weeks to train for this marathon. Originally, my goal was to just wing it, come up with my own plan, and just start running on the streets or taking that approach to training. But then I decided to look online. I ended up finding this website that had a whole bunch of different training programs where you would put in your goal pace that you wanted to hit, and then it would give you a training program for that specific pace that you wanted to hit. So I wanted to go sub 3:30, went to that training program, and then I started to do that program. And what this program was, it was 6 days a week. 4 of those runs were easy runs with strides towards the end for maybe about 2 of those runs, and then there was 1 threshold run, and then there was 1 long and easy run. With these training programs, there were 16-week schedules. I'll also link them below. You can choose your pace, so if you want to say run a 4 or a 4:30 or a 3, I think it goes as low as a 3, maybe 2:30, I'm not really sure. You can check those out, and it'll give you a specific training program to hit that goal pace. And when I ended up finding this training program, I was about 10 weeks out from my marathon. So when I started, it wasn't for the full 16 weeks. It was about 10 weeks to the marathon is when I ended up starting it, and I followed it basically to a T. The only time I wouldn't really follow it is when the run was shorter than 45 minutes, because I have the standard that whenever I'm working out, I want to hit a minimum of 45 minutes. So if it had me running for, say, 30, 35, 40 minutes, I would just bump it up to 45 minutes. And other than that, I followed it exactly as it had laid out. I found this a little bit funny, or at least just seeing the progression of my body being able to handle these runs, because the first time I ended up running a half marathon, my body was just shut down, my legs. I couldn't walk afterwards. I basically was out for a week. I ended up getting injured and had to take 6 months off. But during this program, I was running at least, my long run was usually over 13 miles. So I was running over a half a marathon, usually at least once a week. And it was just funny that I was able to do that and then continue with this whole program, because this whole program I was running almost about, it was between like 50 and 60 miles per week. So I was logging a lot of miles in there, and then it got up to the point where I was running 20 miles per week. So I just thought that was a little bit funny. So like I was saying, the easy runs, there would be about 4 of those per week. 2 of them, 2 to 3 maybe, would have strides in them. So easy run, you want to be able to have a conversation at this pace. You want to be able, if you're running with someone, you want to be able to have a conversation. You can talk with them. You're not breathing or out of breath every time you say 4 words, and you got to be like and you got to take deep breaths. So easy runs, you're able to have conversations. You're not breathing really heavily, and your heart rate's not very elevated. And then I would have 1 threshold run, which would typically be about 60 to 120 minutes, sometimes maybe longer. But this is just workout styles within it, and it's pushing you and your heart rate. So you're building that endurance along with speed. So some examples might be, you're going to have 5K pace for 3 minutes, and then you got a 2-minute easy, and then you got to do it again. Or maybe you got 20 minutes at marathon pace with 5 minutes easy, and then you got to do it again. So those are just kind of the different workouts that would be included in there. And then the long runs were fairly straightforward. For the most part, it was just easy throughout the whole run. There was a few towards the end. It would be maybe 2 hours easy, and then the last hour at goal marathon pace. So that was pretty much the breakdown of the easy, threshold, and long easy runs. The last thing I want to say on my runs is after my long runs, my legs would be pretty tired, and I did really love to take ice baths after that, and I felt that that did help a lot on recovery and just being able to get back out there, because after my long runs, the next day I got to go back out and do another 45-minute run, and then the next day was like a 60-minute run for the most part. So ice baths after my long run, I strongly recommend. I love doing that, and that I honestly look forward to it because my legs were just sore and it's just laying down and you're enjoying it. And I do strongly recommend some ice baths. So that's pretty much my training schedule. And there's a few key factors that I do believe played a role into how I was able to have such a successful training factor. And the first one would definitely be my diet. My diet was the cleanest it's ever probably been. I was at the time doing low carb, so that was a little bit tough on those long run days where I'd have to eat, say, 5,000 plus calories, and I'm trying to not eat a lot of carbs. So I'm eating 300 plus grams of protein, I'm eating a whole bunch of fat, and I just didn't really like eating a lot of protein. It's just a lot easier to get carbs, in my opinion. Say, eat a bagel or eat some oats. It's a lot easier to do that. So that was the one issue that I did have. But when I was doing this, this was the cleanest I was really ever eating. I was always having veggies. I was staying extremely strict. I wasn't having any desserts or anything like that. The only sugars I would eat were from fruits and from maybe a sweet potato, or other than that, I was eating everything naturally and whole. So, and I was tracking my food daily, and I didn't want to lose weight at the same time. I wanted to be able to maintain my weight. So that was one thing that I was really focusing on, is making sure that I'm maintaining my weight the whole time. And diet, it played an extremely big role, because you got to be able to refuel and recover, and that's how you're going to be able to refuel and recover, is having good foods, and you're not eating like bag of chips or some candy. I know a lot of people, I'm so amazed whenever I see marathon runners or bikers or Ironman athletes, triathletes, whatever it is, they're just eating all this junk food. I'm amazed that they're able to do that, because, and they aren't gaining weight, because you're not fueling your body properly. So for me, I was feeling extremely good. It was the cleanest I probably ever ate for like that 2.5 month span. Next up, I was drinking enough water to fuel an elephant or something. I don't know. I was nonstop drinking. I was well over a gallon of water, and I think that's one reason why I was able to never need water while I was on my run. So I never ended up bringing water or gels or bars or anything on my runs. And I know a lot of people do that, but for me, I just never really needed it. The only time I really did actually need it was, it was a 3 hour run, and it was very hot out, and there was a little bit of a workout segment in there, and the sun was blaring down, and I definitely needed some water or some food or something during that run. But other than that, I didn't really need any water or food whenever I went out and run. So that was one thing that I did really well, was just getting enough water in my diet. And maybe too much, but it was basically the only thing that I would drink, other than, say, smoothies, or I would maybe have some coffees here and there, or energy drinks. But other than that, I was pretty much just only drinking water. The last one, somewhat similar to water, because you got to drink it with it, is drinking Element. So I originally started out not having any electrolytes, and when I was running, I don't know if it was just unexpected, or my body wasn't ready for the amount of volume that I was going to be upping, because I was just maybe running a couple times a week, and then I ended up going to 6 times per week. So when I first started out, my legs were sore, and then I started taking Element, and what ended up happening, the electrolytes and salt, I think that really helped with my body and just being able to recover. So I started taking that before every single run. So I'd take it about an hour before each time I was going to be going out for a run. And I know there's probably some cheaper ways that you could go about this, where you could get some salt or electrolytes if you don't want to go with Element. I know Element is a little bit more on the pricey side, but I just love it, the convenience of it. It's already in a packet. You don't got to measure it or anything like that. You just cut it open, you're good to go. So I do recommend salt and electrolytes. That's one thing that I didn't really realize once I got into marathon training and running marathons, how much salt that you actually put out. Because after my first half marathon, I was like, what's all this stuff on me? And it took me a while to realize that it was all salt. So you do lose a lot of salt. And if you do want to get some Element, I have a link in the description. You'll get a free sample pack of all their flavors, so you can use and hopefully you got some value out of this and enjoyed this video. So thanks for watching, and best of luck in your first marathon or 20th marathon.